Hey guys, Sniz here, and today we're going to be going over what I'd say is probably one of my all-time favorite league starters, the Toxic Rain Trickster with Mines. Now, this is a build with amazing map clear, very reliable single target, and a really decent survivability. So, let's take a look. Now, before we get into it, just a friendly reminder, if you like this type of content and you do want to see more, remember to hit the subscribe button to get notified when I post a video. And if you have any questions or you just want to hang out while I go live, you can always follow the stream over at Twitch. Now, this is going to be more of a detailed guide with a league start setup and crafting tips. So if you want to skip around, timestamps in the description and the video progress bar. Okay, let's take a look at the playstyle of this build. And also, keep your eyes on the comment section of this video. If Toxic Rain or something related to this build gets nerfed in the patch notes, I'll update you guys and let you know whether this build is still worth league starting with or not. Now, the main question I get when I play this build on stream is, why do I play with Mines? And it seems that many people have had negative experiences with Mines, saying that the Mine playstyle feels clunky. Now, with Detonate Mines on your left click, this setup doesn't feel clunky at all. It pretty much feels as if you're self-attacking with Toxic Rain with the added benefits of using Mines. Now, these added benefits from using Mines are, number one, you don't have to worry about stacking attack speed, which leads to number two, you're not having to worry about getting reduced mana cost on your rings and amulets. Number three, Mines auto-target the enemy, so in boss fights you can focus all your time on just dodging boss mechanics. And on the note of boss fights, number 4, you can prelay up to 19 mines before a boss fight. That means you have 19 Toxic Rains that will go off immediately when the boss spawns, probably one-shotting it. And finally, number 5, with the charged mine support, it's really easy to generate frenzies and power charges with mines. Now, with Detonate Mines on your left click, your mapping playstyle is pretty much identical to normal Toxic Rain, in the sense that when you right click to place a mine, they get auto detonated, with the added benefit of mines auto targeting and having a slight chance to detonate twice from a single cast. Now, for single target, you want to make sure to throw down your wither totems and then prelay 19 mines before activating the boss. As soon as the boss is activated, you can pop all 19 mines to pretty much insta-kill the boss. And since we're using blast chain mine support, the more mines we detonate in sequence, the more damage we'll do. And that's pretty much it for the playstyle. It's a really fast mapper with pretty good single target and a lot of survivability, since we have a ton of dodge and then a lot of reduced damage taken if we do take a hit. We also have very nice sustain thanks to a lot of life, energy shield and mana on kill. So I think we'll take a look at the passive tree next. So for the passive tree, like I said, this is a build focused around dodge. So you can see we have the phase acro and wind dancer combo. Now this means that these two nodes reduces or increases our chances to dodge hits from attacks and spells. And then if we do take a hit, the damage is significantly reduced thanks to wind dancer. We then grab life nodes wherever we can, and as you'll see, we increase our maximum frenzies by 2 as well. Now this, thanks to charged mine support, gives us more mine throwing speed. And then the rest of the tree is pretty much just utility mine nodes, such as this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then chaos dot damage or just generic damage over time nodes, such as this one, this node, this node, this node, and this node. Now, something that is really nice in this setup, usually you can't proc on kill effects with mines because it's not you getting the kill. But since Toxic Rain has a damage over time element, with this build we're actually able to gain elusive on kill, since the damage over time in some weird way counts as our damage. So that's really nice, and we're able to gain elusive through this node. And for the rest of the points, it's pretty much just life wherever we can grab life. Now I also have a cluster jewel setup. The large is an increased chaos damage 8 passive large with the touch of cruelty, which is really nice since enemies take 10% increased chaos damage. This stacks up really nice since we have so many Toxic Rain pods on the floor. Then we have Unholy Grace for the 30% increased chaos damage. Now it's important to note that attack and cast speed doesn't affect us at all when it comes to Toxic Rain. since mines aren't affected by attack or cast speed. So that's also really nice, since you don't have to get a bow with good attack speed, you can just grab any bow. And then we also have Wicked Pole. Now Wicked Pole is our GG notable right here. As you can see, we have one on the mediums as well. Since skill effect duration increases the time that we have pods on the floor, increased skill effect duration just is a general damage over time increase for Toxic Rain. Now, if we take a look at the craft of Exile for large chaos damage over time cluster jewels, we can go over all the notables and see which notables are really good and which won't benefit this build at all. So, like I've said, Wicked Pole is the GG notable that you want to try and get on your larges and your mediums. Unwavering Evil is also really nice to get. The 30% increased chaos damage is really nice. Touch of Cruelty, as I've mentioned, is also really good. You do want to get this one. Now, you don't want to get Overwhelming Malice. And then we have Misery Everlasting. Now, this is Despair Curse Effect. It's okay. It's not the best notable, but if you can't get away without having this, this is an okay one to have on your large. And then Dark Ideation. This is also not really recommended, but it could work if you stack some mana as well. Then for the suffixes, Grim Oath. Like I've said, this isn't one that you want. We don't do physical damage, so we're not benefiting from the physical as extra chaos at all. And then Unholy Grace is the one that we have. The 30% increased chaos damage is really nice. The attack speed and cast speed doesn't affect us, like I've said. And then Unspeakable Gifts, enemies explode if you kill them. This is a really nice one to get, but it's pretty difficult to hit, so it's a luxury node if you're able to hit this one. Now, if we take a look at the mediums that I have in this setup, like I've said, we have Wicked Pole on both of our mediums. This is the #1 node you want to go for on your mediums. As for the rest, this is just generic chaos damage or damage over time multiplier with a little bit of chaos resist to damage over time. This is really nice to get. And then the other notable that we have is Student of Decay for increased damage over time and increased chaos resistance. Okay, now we take a look at the medium clusters for chaos damage over time and all of their notables on Craft of Exile. And by the way, I just show you guys these so you know what notables are good. I know that most people just take the exact same cluster jewel and type it in on PoE trade, and sometimes those cluster jewels are way too expensive, although I don't think these are. This is just to show you what other notables are good and what other notables will work in this setup. So, as you can see, we have a ton of notables that can roll on these mediums. You kind of want to focus on getting Wicked Pole. Wicked Pole is the #1 thing you want to go for, and then most of these that increase chaos damage over time or just increase chaos damage will be good. You want to avoid the ones that focus around ailments, since Toxic Rain doesn't do ailment damage. You also want to avoid all these with poison multiplier, since Toxic Rain also isn't poison. And then the same with bleeding, you want to avoid bleeding. And like I said, yeah, critical as well. Anything that increases damage over time will work, and anything that increases chaos damage over time. And more importantly, you want to focus on getting increases to the damage over time multiplier. That's where your big damage comes from. Now let's take a look at the jewels we have in this build. Or first, let's talk about the sockets. Now in a few more levels, we can grab quite a few sockets. We can grab this jewel socket right here for 2 points. We can grab this jewel socket right here for 2 points as well. Then we can grab this jewel socket right here for 3 points. And then if we want to travel all the way down, we can grab this one for 3 points as well. Now in the setup currently, I only have the 2 in the mediums. Now these only have chaos damage over time multiplier and increased life on both of them. That's the only stats that are important. The rest of these stats don't matter. So yeah, if you level this to above level 95, grabbing these sockets are really nice, and then getting a Malevolence Watcher's Eye is also very, very good, but that I'll talk about in the possible upgrade section of this guide. Now let's take a look at the Ascendancies. Like I said, this is a Trickster, and the first notable, or the first Ascendancy node that we take after the first lab is Patient Reaper. Now this might not seem like a very important node, but recovering percentages of your life and ES on kill is absolutely massive for sustain in maps. You'll immediately feel the difference as soon as you get this node. Then in the second lab, I go for Prolonged Pain. Like I said, increased skill effect duration increases our damage over time, or just our total damage with Toxic Rain pods. and then the more damage over time is massive. As a general rule of thumb in PoE, increased damage is good, but you want to prioritize going for more damage, as more damage just gives you a lot more damage than increased damage, if that makes sense. Then in the third lab, I go for Ghost Dance, which gives us Ghost Shrouds. Now, we can have up to 3 Ghost Shrouds, and we take 3% reduced damage taken per Ghost Shroud. So like I said, we do stack a lot of dodge, and we also have Wind Dancer. So if we do take a hit, Wind Dance will reduce the damage as well, and then we'll have Ghost Dance reduce the damage we take from that hit also. So we dodge almost every single hit that is thrown our way, and if we do take damage, the hit gets reduced by a ton. And if that's not enough, we recover a percentage of our ES as well if we lose a Ghost Shroud. So this is really nice. Then for the last Ascendancy, you have 2 options. The more defensive option is Escape Artist. Now this is the one I usually opt for. Pretty much this just gives us a nice bit of ES if we have evasion on our chest piece, and we get a nice bit of evasion if we have ES on our helmet. Now, I pretty much always just focus on the ES from chest piece. I'm not too worried about the evasion from helmet. Now, like I said, this is... Oh, and we also get stun immunity, which is nice. Now, like I said, this is the defensive route. If you want to go for a more offensive route, you don't have to take Escape Artist, and you can take Swift Killer. Now, this just gives us increased damage per power and frenzy. And with this node, we'll have 4 powers, 4 power charges, and 6 frenzy charges. So this is a good node if you want more damage, but I recommend you go for Escape Artist on League Start. Now, let's take a look at the items that we use in this build, and I think we'll start off with the uniques first. So we use Profane Proxy, importantly on our left ring slot to remove the Chilling Skitterbot, not the Shocking Skitterbot, and then we socket Despair into this ring. Now, this is a nice ring as it then allows this little Skitterbot right here with the weird aura on it, this one, to go and curse nearby enemies with Despair. So this is just a nice and very, very cheap way of applying Despair to enemies. Then for our boots, we go for Vastiri Steps. Now, these boots are really, really nice since they give nice flat life, they give 30% increased move speed, and they also give 15% spell dodge, which is massive. Now, these are really, really easy to farm. You just need to kill normal Vastiris, and with this setup, you can do that on day 1 of the league, and it's what I'm probably going to do on my day 1 of the following league. Then for the rares, on our ring, we have a percentage increased life implicit Vermilion ring with life and resistances. Now, as you can see, this ring also has increased chaos damage. Now, you craft a ring like this by using Essences of Envy, the best one you have. You probably want to use Deafening, but at League Start, whatever Essence of Envy you have will allow you to craft a nice increased chaos damage rare ring. Then for our belt, this is just a normal Stygian with increased or with maximum life and as much resistances as we can get. Now, an upgrade to this would be a Hunter influenced Stygian with increased chaos damage. Now, this is still an upgrade that I need to get. I don't have that upgrade in this setup. And then, as you can see, for the rest of the rares except for the bow, we have Hunter influence on all of these. So let's start off with the helmet. The helmet has a Toxic Rain +1 additional arrows enchant. It doesn't make that big of a difference, I'll be honest with you. And then again, this is just life and resistances on the helmet. An upgrade that I could get here as well is I could get the Hunter influence mod that decreases chaos resistance of nearby enemies. Like I said, this is still an upgrade that I need to get, and I don't currently have it on this setup. Then for our gloves, we have chaos damage over time multiplier on the gloves thanks to the Hunter influence, and then again, life and resistances. Now, unfortunately, this is a spiked glove with increased melee damage implicit that doesn't affect us, so ideally you'd want to go for a gripped glove with these mods on it. And then let's take a look at the amulet. Okay, so the amulet has 2 mods that we want to go for. We want to go for increased chaos damage over time multiplier. It's a Hunter influence mod. And then we also want to go for +1 to all chaos skill gems. Also a Hunter influence mod. Now, just spamming chaos modifiers more common through harvest crafting makes this amulet really easy to craft. As you can see, the rest of the stats aren't really important. The dex is a little bit... The dex helps out a little bit, but it's not too important. The lightning damage doesn't do anything for us. 10% chaos resist nearly does nothing for us. And then I just crafted on some life. If we then take a look at the quiver, now this is a pretty nice quiver. We have both damage over time multiplier, and we also have chaos damage over time multiplier. Now getting both of these mods on one quiver can be tricky, since the damage over time modifier is pretty hard to hit and it doesn't have an influence tag. And then the chaos damage over time influence is thanks to, or the chaos damage over time multiplier is thanks to hunter influence. And then for the rest of the stats, you just want to see wherever you can fit in resistances and life. Now, if we take a look at the chest piece, this is just an evasion-based chest piece, so we get the little bit of extra ES from our Ascendancy, and then once again, life and resistances. Now, I've crafted on gain maximum life as extra ES. This is a really nice craft to just give us an additional, a little bit amount of ES as well. Having ES on this sort of setup is nice since we recover percentages of our ES on kill. So it's just a little extra buffer that we have for our defenses. Now, if we take a look at the bow, this is a very GG endgame bow. This is the sort of bow you want to aim for. Now, if we take a look at the quality increases our area of effect. Now, Toxic Rain has pods that fall on the ground. As you can see, if we attack, these little circles are the pods. Now, the more overlapping pods you have, the more single target damage you have. So increasing area of effect for Toxic Rain does increase our single target. But this enchant isn't the best. It doesn't make the world of difference. And then on this implicit, we have increased move speed and not anything else. Now, since our mines or since Toxic Rain is in mines and it's not an attack speed doesn't affect us. So any implicit on a bow is fine. Increased move speed is just a quality of life one that I have. Then the first thing we want to go for is we want increased level of socketed gems. Then we want to hit damage over time multiplier as well. And then from there on, we want to aim to have one suffix, in this case, fire resistance. And then we want to multi-mod, craft on +2 level of socketed support gems. Now that is a Katarina unveil, so it could be a little difficult to get early on in the league. And then we also want to craft increase to chaos damage over time multiplier, which is a Jun unveil. That's not too difficult to get. Now this, like I said, is a pretty good endgame bow. It gives us a level 29 Toxic Rain. So this is a nice bow, but in the league start setup, I'll show you a very easy bow that you can craft that should get you through all the content in the game. And then, oh yeah, okay, we also have a jewel in the Stygian, and this jewel just gives me onslaught. That's all it does. You can squeeze in anything there that you need to fix. Resistances, life, whatever. For Flasks, we really have a lot of flexibility. Now, as you know me, I always like an instant life flask with bleed removal. This is a really nice flask to have. And then we also have an enduring mana flask. Now, we don't struggle with mana necessarily, but sometimes in boss fights, if we prelay all 19 of our mines and we detonate our mines, we kind of don't have mana for too long, and if we flame dash and move around, we can stun lock ourselves sometimes. So I like to get an enduring mana flask. If you get your aura set up in such a way that you can link your enlighten to both or to all 3 of your aura gems, you could fit in a clarity as well. I wasn't able to get the right colors for that, but that's maybe something you could do to free up a flask slot. But for now, this isn't the worst flask to have. Then we also have a Dying Sun. Now, a Dying Sun is really nice since not only does it give our Toxic Rain 2 additional projectiles, it also gives Toxic Rain increased area of effect. And both of these modifiers is a massive damage increase. Now, it's important to go for a reduced charges used mod. That means you can use the flask more than once instead of just using it once, which feels bad. But it's not too important. On day 1 of a league, you could just use whatever rare flask you want. Then I also have a move speed flask with increased move speed as well. And then this flask is really important, a quartz flask. It gives us increased dodge for attack hits and spell hits, and it also gives us phasing. And this one just has poison removal. You can fit in whatever you want on this one. This flask is just important since we're stacking dodge so much. The more dodge we can add to become closer and closer to dodge cap, the better. Now let's move on to the gems that we use in this setup. So, like you all know, this is a Toxic Rain build. So we start off with a Toxic Rain linked to Vicious Projectiles, linked to Void Manipulation, linked to Charge Mind Support, as it gives us power charges and frenzy charges, and also a lot of mind throwing speed. And then we also have Blast Chain Mind Support. Blast Chain is the better setup here instead of High Impact Mind Support, since we do tend to chain detonate a bunch of mines on single target. Then in this setup I also have a level 4 Empower. Since we have this nice bow with all the +1 level to socketed gems and socketed supports, this boosts our Empower to a level 7, which then in return gives us a level 29 Toxic Rain. Now, like I said, this is a really endgame setup. In the following sections, I'll show you how to make a pretty decent League start bow. Then in our gloves, we have our Wither Totem setup. So this is a Wither linked to Spell Totem, linked to multiple totem support, and just faster casting, since we do have this open socket right here. Then in our helmet, we have a Stone Golem and also Smoke Mine. Now, these two are pretty optional. My Stone Golem is pretty much dead 24/7, and Smoke Mine is something that people either love using or hate using. So this is personal preference, these two right here. Then I have a level 1 cost and damage taken, and a level 2 Immortal Call. This could be a level 3 Immortal Call. This is just a simple little cost and damage taken setup. Then in our boots, we have our Malevolence Aura, linked to our Skitterbot's Aura, linked to an Enlighten support, level 3. This is just so that we can lay down all 19 of our mines and still have enough mana, or barely enough mana, to Flame Dash. So that's the setup. An Enlighten level 4 is the ideal here. We also have a portal. This doesn't have to be linked up. This is just the only little socket that I had for it. Now for the chest piece. Now the chest piece realistically doesn't need to have any links. This is just, since I have them, a very nice quality of life setup. So we have a level 1 23 quality detonate mines. Now I just need to reiterate this. This setup in the chest is not important. You can get away without using this, and I probably won't even use this in my League start setup. But this increases the detonation time for our mine. So as you can see, you get the base detonate mine skill, and then you also get the one that I've socketed in here. Now, if you increase the quality of your detonate mines, your mines just detonate a lot quicker. So I have this detonate mines linked up to a second wind support, which gives cooldown recovery, and then it's also linked up to a level 4 enhance, and then we also have a flame dash in this setup. Now you kind of want flame dash, but the flame dash could just be in a 1 link somewhere else. So this is just a very nice quality of life setup, but it's definitely not necessary early on. And then we also have a Storm Brand linked to Culling Strike. Now, since Chaos damage over time builds can be a little slow early on in the League for single target, just having the little bit of extra Culling Strike that you can just throw onto a Cyrus fight or Conqueror fights is something really nice to have. And I mean, since we have the open sockets, you might as well socket something like this in. Oh, and like I previously mentioned, we have a Despair in our Profane Proxy. Now, something that I also want to point out real quick is, as you can see, none of these gems or supports are either alternate quality or awakened. So including those into the build could boost damage even more. Okay, and on to the last few miscellaneous items in this setup. And as always, we start off with my Pantheons that aren't upgraded. Since we already have stun immunity, we don't want to go for Brine King, so I instead just go for Lunaris, pretty much just because I enjoy having enough move speed. And this might sound weird, but more move speed can in some cases equal better survivability. If you move quick enough, enemies can't really hit you. Then for the minor gods, this isn't a bad minor to have. Ascend or Pantheon right here. The additional evade isn't bad, and then increased move speed also isn't bad. But since we do have a little bit of ES, I just go for Aberrath to make me immune to Burning Ground. Then for our Anoint, we anoint Exceptional Performance. This is a very cheap anoint, and it's skill effect duration. This is the best thing to anoint in this setup. So yeah, like I said, increased duration does increase our damage on Toxic Rain. And then for bandits, I've killed all 3 bandits in this setup, but on League start, having a Lyra for a little bit of extra resistances and mana regen isn't a bad idea. Okay, so now that we've gone through the nice endgame setup, let's discuss how the build will typically look on League start. So I've swapped out a few of my items, pretty much all the items that aren't really obtainable on League start. So my gloves are just life and resistances gloves at this point. The Stygian is still the same Stygian since it's just life and resistances. The Atsiri steps, like I said, you can get from farming Atsiri, which you can do with this setup on day one. So these aren't too difficult to get. I still have the ring, which you can just make with an essence. It's pretty easy to make. Profane Proxy also is pretty cheap to get early on in the league. Then I've swapped out my chest piece for a Restless Ward. This is a really nice unique option since the increased move speed per frenzy is somewhat nice. And the increased charge duration is really nice. And also it has a lot of evasion rating. That means this piece alone gives us around 700 energy shield, as you can see. So this is a really nice unique to have. I've swapped out for a helmet with just life and resistances. No more Toxic Rain enchant. My amulet now just has chaos damage over time multi, no +1. And then I also have a quiver only with chaos damage over time multiplier. So we don't have the double multi-quiver anymore. For the bow is a really good endgame bow, and you're not going to see a bow like that. They're pretty difficult to craft on day one. So instead we're going to aim for a bow that looks something like this. We want to go for +1 level to socketed gems. We want to go for +2 level of socketed bow gems. And then we just want to craft on chaos damage over time multiplier. Now, to show you how easy it is to make one of these bows, we're going to remake this one right here. So the combo for crafting a bow like this is jagged fossils, metallic fossils, and corroded fossils. Now, if you want a detailed explanation as to why you use this combo, I'll link a video by Lolcol down below. He goes into detail as to why these are what you use. TLDR, you just use jagged, metallics, and corroded. Okay, so we want to go for +1 socketed and +2 to bow. Let's see how many tries it takes. That's 1. That's 2. Still not lucky. That's 3. Okay, and we got it in 3. And we have an open prefix. On that prefix, we just want to craft chaos damage over time multiplier for 4C. And that's a bow that'll get you through most of the endgame in PoE. Now, since we don't have +2 to level of socketed supports, using an Empower in this setup isn't ideal, and Empowers are hard to come by on day one. So instead, the setup that we're going to be using is our level 21 Toxic Rain. Now, getting a level 21 early on in the league isn't too difficult. And instead of an Empower, we're going to use Swift Affliction. Like, that's the swap that we make. And then, as before, we have our Blast Chain, Charged Mines, Void Manipulation, and Vicious Projectiles. And like you can see, all of these gems were only level 19. None were really qualityed except the Toxic Rain. So this is the setup, and I'm going to show you the performance on a level 16 or a tier 16 atoll map. I kind of screwed up this run. I got into the map and I realized that I still had cluster jewels. So as you can see, I've removed the cluster jewels to completely simulate the day one league start experience. And as you can see, the build clears pretty well for a tier 16 map. The damage definitely isn't what it can be with all the upgrades, but this is still something that you can achieve on day one of a league. And this is still absolutely melting content even on a tier 16 map. So if we move over to the boss, we'll just move up, we'll lay down our wither totems. You pre-lay about 19 mines, then you flame dash in, and you wait for all those mines to pop. Unfortunately, we had different mobs in here, so we're not withering the boss. Still not withering the boss. There we go, the boss is withered now, and you'll see the damage ramp. And this is honestly something that you can do on day one of a league. So this is really achievable. Okay, so now that I've shown you the final version of this build in action, and then also the league start version of this build in action, how do I progress from league start to the final version? And there are a few key upgrades you can do. The first, and this is always an upgrade that I think people forget about, is just to quality up the main gems in your 6 link. All the gems in our 6 link benefit from quality except Vicious Projectiles. You don't have to quality up vicious projectiles in this setup. And then later on, as you start killing conquerors and farming endgame, upgrading these to awakened supports would also increase your damage quite significantly. Okay, so the first and the biggest upgrade that you can possibly do for a build like this is upgrading your bow. But this is a very difficult thing to do because these bows can be very expensive and very difficult to make. And you can honestly do all the endgame in PoE on a setup like this. Even maybe a little better setup than this, but you don't need a bow like this. So that's the first upgrade that I think is the most important upgrade, is upgrading your weapon. Secondly, you want to start looking at cluster jewels. At this point, we don't really have too many nodes on the tree left that benefit us all that much, and so we kind of want to branch out to cluster jewels. And going back to the build guide section going over the final version of this build, I show the cluster jewels and the notables that are really good. Next, we want to try and upgrade most of our rares into hunter rares. We want the helmet with the nearby enemies have -9 chaos resistance hunter modifier. The Toxic Rain enchant isn't that important, so I don't have it on this helmet, but I still need it. Then we want to go for a hunter glove with increased chaos damage multiplier. This is a very big upgrade. Then we also want the quiver with double damage over time multipliers. We want just generic damage over time multiplier, and then also chaos damage over time multiplier. And then we want to go for an amulet with chaos damage over time multiplier and +1 to all chaos skill gems. Now these are the rare upgrades that you can do that will help you out a little bit and increase your damage by quite a bit. Really, let's be honest, it's a big upgrade. Then for your chest piece, you could honestly stick with a Restless Ward through the entire endgame. I've played this version of the build before where I just used Restless Ward the entire time and it didn't feel bad at all, but switching over to a rare is also a valid option. You could also go for a Kintsugi, the unique chest piece. That works really nice with Wind Dancer, and even an Explode chest, funny enough, feels pretty good in a setup like this. Then we want to go for a Dying Sun. That's an upgrade that you also want to get at some point. The additional projectiles and increased area of effect does mean more damage. And then something that I still don't have in this setup is Watcher's Eye with the increased damage over time while affected by Malevolence. Now those can be pretty expensive, but that is also a massive DPS boost if you can get to that point where you can upgrade to a Watcher's Eye. And that's pretty much it for this setup. It's a very solid League starter that I've League started with before, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to League start with again this League. I plan on doing a video where I run through the campaign and show you what gems you need to pick up when, what items you need to watch out for when leveling this sort of build. So if you want to see something like that, let me know in the comment section down below. I also have an upcoming video talking about 10 uniques or 10 items that you need to keep your eye open for on day 1 that might pocket you a little bit of currency. So if that's something that you're interested in, remember to subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you have any questions or you're stuck on something or you just want to hang out, remember to follow the stream over on Twitch. And yeah, that's it from me. I'm Sniz. Good luck with your League start. I hope it goes well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. This one's fine. It has double crit on again, so maybe it's not fine. But you know what? We're committing, boys. We are committing.